At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy is the CAD of the future. It's cloud-aided dispatch, not dinosaur computer-aided dispatch that looks like it was built in the 1980s. Rapid Deploy's cloud-native CAD, mapping, and analytics increase situational awareness for call takers, dispatchers, and responders. Rapid Deploy is taking public safety by storm. It's fast and easy to deploy, with implementation in days, not years. It's affordable for all agencies of all sizes. Rich in features, functionality, and data, it's also reliable and secure as we use Microsoft Azure Government Cloud. Go to rapiddeploy.com to learn more.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Good morning, everyone. This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be episode 395 of Within the Trenches, True Stories from the 911 Dispatchers Who Live Them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, as well as Rapid Deploy, and we are hosted here today, this week, at the 2021 Navigator Conference put on by the IAED, and thank you so very much for that. Once again, we have been here all week, and it has been an excellent time. We're currently, again, as I said, in the Expo Hall, and it's Wednesday. This is the last day of the expo, and what is going to be going on this morning is they're doing a breakfast with the exhibitors. You can hear the background. There's more people that are going to be coming in, people getting their breakfast and such, more demos and everything going on in each booth, and there are going to be some people that are going to be coming up as well looking for patches. So we'll see how this goes down as we're doing this episode. But I am excited to be here. Again, we are in person. And it's been a while. It's been a while since we've been in person for a lot of these conferences, so it's good to get back. As I've said earlier on this week, it's like the first day of school. It's been summer vacation, and we're now back. We're seeing people, saying hello, giving hugs, and for those who want hugs, of course. And and it's just been really good. So again, thank you IAD for hosting the podcast. I'm here in booth 412, and I'm excited for this episode. I have got 2 guests with me. There's actually a mother-daughter group here that we're going to be learning more about and everything. I do also want to give a shout out really quick to the patrons. Thank you, patrons, very much for everything. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of you, and of course those who are watching, listening, sharing, and supporting. So thank you so very much. So my guests today, I have both Lindsay and Theresa, and they are with Watertown PD out of South Dakota. How's it going?
It's going well. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. So when did you get in? When did you get in for the conference?
We came in on Sunday afternoonish.
Yeah, Sunday afternoonish?
Yeah.
And how long was the flight for you? There was a lot of people that it seemed like they were coming in, that were getting delayed, and there was just a lot of stuff. Did you end up running into any of those issues at all?
Well, we drove from Watertown, South Dakota to Minneapolis. Our flight was out of Minneapolis, so that in itself is like a 3.5-hour drive.
Oh.
And then we got on our flight, and it's a straight shot to Las Vegas. That's about a 3.5-hour flight, so it was actually pretty good. It was just a little bit brutal for us coming from South Dakota, where the temperatures right now were lower, in the maybe 70s. And coming here and standing outside waiting for a shuttle, and it's like over 100. And we were thinking, okay, I think I want to turn around and go home. I feel like I might die.
Right. Yes. Yeah. No, it was the same thing for my brother and I. So we flew out very early Friday morning out of Detroit. And it was about, I think it was 68 degrees. It was 68 degrees when we left. And then, same thing. We landed. And I looked at my watch and I showed it to him and he goes, "For real?" And I said, "Yeah, dude." Like, it is super hot outside right now. And then just waiting for a taxi was just horrible. Like I was waiting for like some, like some misters or something,
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
But
the thing that everybody kept telling us is like, it's not that bad because it's a dry heat. No. Heat is heat. Yeah, it's hot.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
You're either in the oven or you're not.
Yes, and we have definitely been in the oven because over the past weekend, before everybody else was starting to get here and stuff, I think the highest it hit when I looked at my watch, it was about 117.
Right.
And our dumbasses were walking from casino to casino. Yeah. And it's very misleading, right? Because you see the casino and it's enormous, and you're like, oh, it's just right there.
Yeah.
And then it's like a mile and a half. You're like, okay, yeah, time to dip into a different casino or call 911 because I'm having heat stroke.
At least you know how to do that.
Yes, this is right. Yes, and if anything were to happen, especially here, this would be the place. This would be the spot for something to happen. Actually, I talked to a gentleman yesterday. His name is Ryan. He was telling me a story about being at a conference. It was an EMS conference, actually, and he actually went into cardiac arrest.
Oh, word. Wow.
Yeah.
There's no better place, I guess.
That's exactly what he was saying. Like, everything he was saying, I was just sitting there staring at him because I couldn't believe it. I was and he goes, "And here I am, I'm here." And I was like, "I'm so glad that you are here to tell this story. Like, that is crazy." But yeah, like you were saying, if that's going to happen, that's where it needs to happen. Right. Is in a place like this where everybody knows what to do. Right?
Exactly.
So, before we get into learning more about the both of you and your stories and such, what have you enjoyed so far about the Navigator Conference? And also, is this the first time coming to this conference?
It's the first time for both of us. And I think for myself, what I've enjoyed is just seeing the variety of people in all the different agencies that have come together to kind of teach and support each other.
Yes.
And I had a couple of sessions yesterday that were really very informative, very interesting, very captivating. And I just really enjoyed that. Plus, when I go to the gym, I don't have to get on the treadmill because you're doing a lot of walking here.
This is true. Yes. Yeah, very true. What about you, Lindsay?
I've enjoyed seeing all the different products, learning about different vendors. We have the ones that we've used, and so seeing the variety out there is exciting. And sometimes I'm like, oh, that would be really nice to have that at our center.
Right.
So getting their information and thinking, okay, I'm going to take this back and talk to our director and see what we can do from there.
Yeah, it is really cool, right, to walk through and see all this technology that's being brought in for everyone, for every aspect of public safety, different incidents and everything, especially location accuracy and just so much other stuff that's going on, and to be able to go to different sessions, and when you get to the Q&A part and you hear from other people and what they're dealing with, is sometimes you end up getting to that moment where we're not the only ones. Like, so I'm going to go meet with them really quick. So even that networking, is very powerful because there are people who are dealing with the same shit that you are, and you can learn how they're navigating through it. So that
and all these different products that I had no idea were out there.
Yes,
everything that's available that you just go, what? What, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Yeah, so it's always been really good to be able to come here and do this on both ends. When I was in dispatch, I went to a few conferences, and then when I left dispatch, I was working as an industry partner, as a vendor and stuff. So doing it on that end, it was a lot different. But also being able to bring people in and teach them how we do text 911 and all the other stuff that I was doing with the other company, but also doing this at the same time, doing double duty. It was a lot of fun. But you meet people, you see new faces, familiar faces, and you just learn so much. So it has been really, really good. But I want to learn more about you, and of course, the audience to learn more about you. So who would like to start first? Right away. Daughter points at mother. Mom is going to go first.
There you go.
So how did you get into public safety to begin with?
To be completely honest, we both worked at another company together before we came to Watertown Police Department, and that entity was closing. And so I think you had already left.
Yeah.
She had already left like a couple of months before I did, but I needed a job. And sometimes when I train new people, I say, if you're coming to this position, it's okay for your motivation to be, I need a job.
Right.
And be open for that moment where it turns into, I do it because it helps people and I can make a difference. And but your initial motivation, it's okay to be because you need a job, And so my youngest daughter was looking in the paper one day when they still advertised stuff in the paper, and she said, "Oh, Mom, here's this position, be a dispatcher." And I was like, "Are you nuts? Like, there's absolutely no way I could do that." And she said, "They teach you. They'll teach you how to do it.
Right. Yeah.
You'd be good at it." And I was like, I don't know. And at that time, you had to go in and take the civil service exam and everything else. And I actually placed in the top 5 for the civil service exam, and went for the interview. And at the time that they had the initial opening, there was one position open. And at the time that they actually went to hiring, they had 3. And so I got hired, and it was difficult. It was a very difficult thing to come into. So like in South Dakota, you have to do your training at your agency, but then you also have to go to PEER, which is our capital, and go to the Law Enforcement Training Center and get your certification to be a dispatcher. And I went to PEER about a month and a half after starting, and you go through your 2-week training there, and you go through your simulation eval. And when I finished my eval, this gal who was doing my eval, she comes up to me and she says, "Can I just ask how old you are?" And I thought, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to, but, okay. So I said, "Well, I'm 53. And she said, "Well, kudos to you for trying something like this at your age." And
she pat you on your shoulder, like,
yeah,
good for you.
And that kind of put a fire under me, And I was like, "I will show you," And honestly, when I went back to my agency, I made it through not only because of the quality of training that I had from my coworkers, but with the support of my husband and a lot of prayer,
Nice.
And so. I would come home and I'd be like, I don't think I can do this, And I had some really bad calls. I was for a while
she's our
there.
shit magnet.
I was for a
man.
long time there. I was, and I would come home and I would talk to my husband, and he would kind of, bring me down a little bit, and we'd pray, And but for a while there, especially during those months of training, and I was really anxious and upset, and just like. And I would go in at 6 a.m. for training, and by 6:30, I'm standing in the bathroom looking at myself in the mirror going, "Today is not the day you're quitting. You are not quitting today. You're going to see this through." And so it was with a lot of perseverance and pushing through. And, and then I went to 911 phase and learning that. And it was like every single time that thing rang, I wanted to throw up, And because I was getting the bad calls. It wasn't fair.
Man, you straight up baptized.
Yeah,
right
they'd be like, "We've never had a call like that."
Yeah.
Really?
It was all you.
Saved it for me.
All you.
Yeah. So, but then, you do get to the point that, and our captain of support services would say, it takes 2 to 3 years to really feel confident and comfortable. So what I did was mentally, I was like, okay, I will wait for that day. I will go through all of this and I will wait for that day. And there came that day where, I was like, oh my God, I can do this. I can do this job, and that's a good feeling, when you finally get to that point where you're like, okay, I can do this.
It makes you want to do a backflip. It's like when you tie your shoes for the first time, you're like, hell yes, I did it.
Right.
Man, so I can relate with you in the sense where, so the last center that I was at, it was actually for the county that I grew up in. And there was a girl and she still works there now, but her and I grew up together, childhood friends, went to school together. It was just funny that years later, she would end up being my supervisor in dispatch. But I get in there and, no one was talking to me. I'm in my training phase and it's just my trainer and I. But nobody's talking. And I remember going home and telling my wife, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. I said that we're supposed to be working like a team, but there's no teamwork going on. It's just me and this person, which I kind of understood, but I thought, don't you want to kind of make me feel welcomed, as part of the team, a little bit or something? Yeah, exactly. So we're
going to make the job harder for you.
Well, so at one point I ended up telling my friend, I was like, dude, I'm going to quit. I said, because this doesn't seem like a team environment. Like, I don't know if I want to do this. And I remember she told me, just stick with it. She goes, I promise you it'll be fine. She goes, once you get to this certain phase, that's when we start working as a team. They just want you to focus on certain things. So I did. I stuck through it. But I had moments like that as well, where I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this, or I don't know if I even want to do this.
Right.
But
because it changes.
I'm glad I did. Yeah. There's
no way it can't.
Right. And you're working so many hours, you don't get to see your family or anything. Especially if everyone is short-staffed, right? So when that is going on, you don't always get to spend a lot of extra time. You're always in dispatch and working and doing other things. So, there's all of that. Now for Lindsay, what about you? How did you get involved in public safety?
It was my mom. It's her fault.
Well, and honestly, when we had the opening and when she first applied because I encouraged her to apply, but I did it with some trepidation because I was like, I know how it has changed me.
Yeah.
Do I want that happening to my daughter?
That's a good way to look at it as well.
What she didn't know is that I was already broke before. So
I didn't do
anything,
that.
If anything, I feel bad for breaking her more.
That's funny.
No, I was a stay-at-home mom and just kind of looking to supplement my husband's income.
Yeah.
And I was working part-time at a bar, and it took the interview, and the first time I applied, it was a part-time position, but I was making more money at the bar. So I was like, I think I'll just stay here. It's much easier.
Yeah.
And then the second time, it was a full-time position, and it was like, okay, yeah, sure. I did. I remember feeling like, I don't know if I'm ready to make life and death decisions, because that's what it feels like, I think, if you don't know much about dispatch, and especially hearing and being her support going through her training, I kind of knew a little bit more what was involved, and I just wasn't sure right away that I was okay with that. But, as I went through the process and stuff, Teresa was like, it's okay, you'll have this training, you'll get this training, you'll be prepared, and so I kind of had the same experience, like especially out in Pierre after our training in our center. There were times where I'm like, I just don't know, like if I can do this, and but she was always there to be like, it's fine, if I can do it, you can do it, you know, and so I was like, all right, so that's how I got started. Yeah. And now I really I'll probably retire from dispatch. So
nice.
Great.
Well, so this is an interesting dynamic here as well, because a lot of times, when people are in this industry, they want to talk to their family or friends or whatever. Sometimes they don't, because they don't want to put some of that, the craziness that is 911 onto others. So before you got into it, did you two ever talk about any calls or anything, or did you just really not want to put some of that, some of the craziness that goes on in 911 in her head? Did you have those conversations?
Let me first say we're best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. She is my best friend.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
And
Like, I know people say that sometimes, like, oh, my mom's my best friend. But really, truly, honestly, we are best friends.
Yeah. This,
That's
like I said, this is the second place we've worked together, and even my brother and my sister are like, "Why do you call her Teresa?"
Yeah, she never calls me mom.
I did catch that a moment ago.
And I'm like, because if you're at work and you're like, "Hey, mom, can you help me?"
Right.
It's
yes.
really freaking weird.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
You know,
Yeah, you're
so
right.
so it's just been Teresa,
Yeah.
know, but she's my mommy.
So then conversations did happen and everything. So along with the conversations, I guess a good thing as well, as you were kind of stating already, is the fact that you were able to prepare for certain things because you already had the experience, and you could kind of walk through and say, look, don't worry about it. This is going to come up and things like that. So that definitely would help out.
Yeah. Well, and part of the thing too is that I kept reminding her is that when you're in there, you're not working alone. It's not that there's another body sitting beside you. Like you had said, you're working as a team.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have had multiple calls that were bad calls, and but the way you get through is knowing that you don't have to do everything alone. You're not responsible for holding the weight of that call. You've got other people in the center who are supporting you and doing everything they can in the background while you're dealing with this.
Right.
So it obviously when you get a bad call, it's not the only call you're going to get, because that's when every barking dog call comes in, or an officer wants to do a traffic stop, or and so stuff doesn't stop just because you're on a bad call.
This is true.
And so like I just had this call last week, and not really awful, but had good outcome for this really odd situation, but there were two of us working, and the other gal turns around, she's like, don't worry about it, I will take care of everything else, do what you have to do, because I'm like, I can't get off the phone here, I've got to stay. So the thing was in reminding her, as you're coming into this and you get all your training, you're never alone. You've got people working in the background who are doing everything that sometimes I always say she's the racehorse, I'm the Clydesdale, so I can get the job done.
Right.
And when push comes to shove, I can do it well, but she does it well all the time, so it's that thing of you're working together. Whatever you can't do in that call, your partner's going to pick up. So that's always great to know. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Having that team environment, that whole the camaraderie and everything that you build during those times, because you spend so much time with all of those in that room, and you get really close, not only with those that are in the room, but also those that are out on the road as well.
Yeah.
So for you, what was it like coming in then? What was that training like? Like, was it overwhelming at all? Like, do you remember walking into the center and just seeing everything and thinking, oh shit, like?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm pretty computer literate, so I think I caught on pretty quickly with the programs that we use and things like that. I think what really probably was the hardest part was 911, not because of the calls, because I'm more of a realist and I know people die and like shit happens. So like that doesn't bug me as much, but it's more of like the unknown, because I'm a planner. So like I like to know what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
And so, that the unknown is really what kind of gets my heart rate going a little bit. And,
right. Yeah. Well, and so that has to be, one of the harder things as well, because we deal with the fact that there's the majority of the time no closure.
Right.
So as a planner and everything and wanting to know certain things, that's got to.
I would say the nice thing is, though, our agency and a lot of the officers that we serve, they're pretty good about coming in and being like, hey, this is what happened, or this is why this went that way, or what have you. So
this is the outcome.
This is the outcome. Yeah, I would say our agency is really good about that. And, a lot of our other agencies that we serve, because we serve a 6-county area, if we want to know, they're pretty open with calling and being like, yeah, this is what happened,
That's awesome. There's not a lot of agencies that do that. Sometimes people, they don't know. And I've had a few calls myself, some hard ones especially, where officers have come in and they've actually sat down and gave me that gift of closure, and I've felt better, afterwards. But there have also been times where I just didn't know, and I'm just kind of sitting there like, all right, well, let's go to the next call.
And I think as dispatchers, we our imagination is always worse than what
Yes.
is actually happening.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm always like, I always say that dispatch has made me a worst case scenario person because like everybody will be like, we're flying. I hate flying. We're flying there today. And I'm like, what if this happens? She's like, Lindsay, it's going to be fine. And I'm like, no, I just hate flying. Like, what if we go down? And I researched where to sit on the plane that's the safest, over the wing.
You're
5
definitely
rows.
a planner then.
Yeah, 5 rows from the exit, and
Yeah.
I'm like reading the safety guide.
Like she's literally the only one who paid attention when they're doing the whole safety thing. She's like looking on the thing like, okay, that's how that goes in there. If we do a water ditch, the seat is, and I'm like,
man.
Linz, deep breath. It's okay. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'll tell you a story offline about something that happened to me, but
Is it going to make my anxiety go even higher?
maybe I won't tell you.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that.
Because I do have to get her home.
This is true.
Right,
yes.
right.
Yeah.
Well, when we were flying out here, she says, okay, so I go on vacation like 2 days after the conference ends. Can you fly back from Vegas by yourself? And Dad will drive
And
out
just
to
pick me up
Vegas
in
and pick
Vegas.
me up. And I'm like, fuck no. No, absolutely not. I'm not flying without you.
Right.
Like, I hate flying. If my center director was like, here's a car, drive to Vegas, I would have been like, hell yeah, sign me up.
There you go. Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I'll go ahead and take it.
Yeah. But no, I had to fly.
Do you remember your first call? Like your first call, or even maybe some earlier calls when you first got on phones and started taking them?
No. My stint as the ship magnet did not start till I was in about a year. So stuff before that is like, well, wait a minute, no. I did have one where a guy died on the phone with me, and that was hard. That was in my 911 training phase, and unfortunately he had been having chest pain for 3 days.
Yeah.
And called in the evening, and he was rural, and so I paged the ambulance. I went through the protocol and was talking to him. Those kind of fill-in questions until you get somebody there. Okay, where are you in the residence? Is your door unlocked? What's the best door for them to use? Do you have any pets they need to be aware of? Because I don't want him up moving around,
Right.
And then I hear this clunk and just complete silence. And I started crying because I knew what had happened. And then I was like, okay, stop it, because he might still be able to hear you.
Right.
So, I'm just like, they're coming as fast as they can. They're coming to help you. I am staying right here until they get there. And you're not alone. And, I'm sending everybody I can, and they're coming as fast as they can. But he was gone, and that was hard, but, I just pray that at the very end, he knew he wasn't completely alone.
Right.
So sometimes that's the only thing we can use as comfort,
Right,
to be
exactly.
like, I did my job. I did what I needed to do, and I did my best for him, so.
Yeah, and I think that is one of those things as well, where sometimes, we take these calls and we think, why me? Why me as the one to be the person, the last person to hear them? But then, kind of switch it around and think, well, they were the last person to hear me. So hopefully, just like you were saying, they felt that they knew that they weren't, alone there during that phone call. But then, after that call, then you either, and rare sometimes, depending on how busy your center is, you have a chance to kind of reflect on the call, or just gain your composure, like, all right, go to the next one. Or sometimes you just jump right into the next one and you don't get that chance.
Yeah.
Until, you go home. So for me, I lived about 45 minutes away from dispatch. So when shit would be crazy all night, and I worked midnight shift, favorite shift for me was midnight shift, and I would have a hard night, it'd be 45 minutes of me driving. Sometimes I would have music, other times I would just be in silence. But I would get into that tunnel vision mode where I would be halfway home and I would like kind of snap out of it and think, how the hell did I get this far?
Yep.
And there's this 4-way stop. Every time I would stop at it, there's no cars coming. But whenever I would pass through, I would look in the mirror and I would see a car go through and I would think, wait, was that car there? And
Yeah.
freak out every single time.
Yep. I live 30 minutes from our center, and I enjoy except for the winter. I enjoy the drive.
Right. Yeah.
Because those nights that you've had a shit night, that 30 minutes, I'm not going straight home to mom, because I got 2 kids at home and another that lives with his dad in Indiana. And so it's like, constantly. Teresa says they're like chickens and they peck you to death. Yeah. That's kind of what children are like, Yeah. So I don't have that right away when I get off, which is sometimes nice.
Yeah.
Because that drive home, it gives you that time to scream if you need to, or listen to some really hardcore music, or listen to some really sad music and cry, or whatever you need to do. But I have had that same experience where I'm driving and I'm like, oh.
Like, I'm almost home. How did I get here?
Yeah. How long has it been? Man, I hope everybody's still alive.
Yeah. Well, there were a few times where I would doze off. Like, I would have to drink an energy drink or coffee around 3 a.m. just to make sure that I wasn't dozing off and hitting like rumble strips because I was so tired and there was so much that was going on. I remember a couple times, and it was only because I was overthinking it, but I would get home and I would go around my car like to make sure there's no dents or anything. Like, did I hit a tree or anything, leaving, or a deer? And I just left, but of course nothing ever happened. It was just me overthinking it. But also that long drive kind of gives you a moment to
decompress.
Yes, to decompress too, because there would be times where I would work a 16-hour shift. I would go home and my son would be awake and I would give him a real tight hug and you could hear him go, "Ugh," because I was hugging too tight, and he would say, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh, Dad just had a hard day at work," and it was because of the types of calls. It had to do with kids or whichever that was going on. So, having that time, I was able to decompress and not squeeze as hard, going in. So, what about you? What about your earlier calls? Do you remember some of the earlier ones?
I only really remember the really funny ones. I don't know.
Well, and that is always good as well. So
before, like I said, I worked at a bar before I came to dispatch, and it was called the Rooster Bar. And we were talking about it while during training or whatever, and the phone rings, and I'm like, ha, ha, ha. I answer the phone. I'm like, Rooster Bar, this is Lindsay. How can I help you? And then I was like, the guy says, I think I misdialed. Yep. Luckily, it was our business line, and it was just our finance guy from City Hall. But then he called back, and I looked at my trainer, and I said, Tara, you get to answer that. And she's like, okay, I will.
That is hilarious. So there is stuff like that happens, right? Sometimes, and it's always good. Also, at least in my opinion, to be able to break up the chaos that is 911 sometimes. We would, and it was only on this one specific line when the officers would call in, but we would do a pirate voice. So we would have to, the person who could do R as many times in a sentence would be the winner. So, an officer would call him and say, Elegant Central, was, or this is Ricardo. And but I had the R in there, so I would say Ricardo, and so I would have one right off the bat, and then we say, "Oh, how are you?" And we just keep going and going, and the officers would be like, "You guys playing a pirate game again?" I'm like, "Yeah." We're trying to see who wins. And sometimes we would be on the radio, and if there wasn't anything going on, it was usually me who was doing it. But I would be on the radio, and I would bust something out as well, or we would do the meow thing, and just a bunch of different things to just kind of break up the time, because 911 can be crazy and it can be nuts, and it can be very stressful, and it is very stressful. But if you have those moments together as a team and those out on the road, 3:30 in the morning, we would be belting out Bohemian Rhapsody. And one time we keyed up and it stuck, and it was open mic. And we're singing and we're getting messages, and people are like, "Hey, good voices." We're like, "Oh shit." Like, well, we'll see what happens now, because that is going on. Now, I know you two have a class that you have to get to here shortly, but what I want to hear about is there was a story that you told me a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
And this is, so for those who are watching and listening right now, this is crazy. So what exactly happened? What happened here? And let's just jump right in. Let's jump right into this call.
so that particular day, and this was actually just last week, and because of some different people being off and that kind of stuff, I had slid my shift from working 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. and I worked 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So there were two of us in the center, and about 11:15 the 911 rang. And so I picked it up, and this gal is saying, we need an ambulance now. And, when you pick it up and you get that, and you're like, oh, what's this?
Right, yes.
And so I'm like, okay. So they're out on the lake in the county west of us. Yeah, west. They're out on the lake, and they're fishing. So it's mom and dad and this adult daughter who's a nurse. And so they're using what's called a bottom bouncer. And I honestly don't fish, so I had no idea what a bottom bouncer is, but my partner showed me a picture of one later. So it's a rod that's about like this long, and it has a weight on it. And so on the one side, the line goes to your pole, and on the other side, the line goes to the lure or the spinner or whatever.
Yeah.
And it, as you troll along or pull it in, it kind of, the weight keeps it down, but it bounces on the bottom and it attracts fish. So apparently he had hooked a northern, which is a fairly large fish, and they have very sharp teeth. And as he was reeling it in, he was getting it to the surface. So he's standing, I'm guessing, kind of in the middle of the boat. His wife is kind of standing in front of him so she can net it when it comes, when he gets it up. Well, apparently the fish chomped down and cut the line and took off with the hook. He didn't see that happen. The bottom bouncer flew up because of the tension on the line, flew up and impaled him in the chest. So here's this, and after she said bottom bouncer, she says steel rod. Well, I know what a steel rod is. So I'm like, oh my God, he's got a steel rod in his chest,
Right.
And so going through the call, and she's describing that it's between the nipple and the armpit, and that she thinks it's about 3 inches in. And he's in a lot of pain. So I'm thinking, okay, this thing is like at least in his lung, and he's in a lot of pain because it probably either broke a rib or it went through the cartilage. That's got to be awful,
Right, yeah.
So we paged out everybody we could think of, because I'm thinking, not only do I need an ambulance, I need somebody to get that boat out of the water for them. I need somebody to, secure everything while we get this family to, the hospital. So we sent Game Fish and Parks. We sent the deputies. We sent the fire department. We sent the ambulance. So like everybody and their dog was there,
Oh, man.
And his wife actually made a Facebook post, and she said it took them about 13 minutes following the GPS to get to shore, to the dock. And so by that time we had, and this is a rural area, but everybody went, as fast as they could go to help this family. So she gets this bottom bouncer kind of stabilized, and she says something about, the daughter said, well, I'm a nurse. And so I know based on other calls that sometimes, especially when it's family, we kind of forget the things we should be doing professionally.
Yeah.
So I think I kept saying, I know you know this, but, don't pull it out. Don't move it. Keep him still. Don't move him unless it's absolutely necessary, And at one point she said, well, I'm going to cut the line. And I was like, don't do anything. Don't do anything.
Yeah.
And she said, no, it's the fishing line. So I can unhook it from the pole. I'm like, okay, just don't move that rod. Don't move anything. Well,
I'm on the edge of my seat, by the way.
So come to find out. So they get him in the ambulance. They stabilize the bottom bouncer rod, and they get him to Prairie Lakes Hospital in Watertown, which is about more than half an hour drive. Mm-hmm. And from there, they airlifted him to Sioux Falls. Before the family got there, they took him right into surgery because the bottom bouncer actually had penetrated his heart.
What?
So it wasn't just in his lungs, and I'm guessing not just 3 inches in, because I saw a picture of this man, and he's a big boy, and so it had to have been more than 3 inches in. But yeah, I actually went into his heart. And by the time they got him into the OR, the pericardium, which is the sac outside the heart, was so filled with blood, it was stopping his heart from beating. And so when they went to open up the pericardium and release all that blood, then he had a blood pressure drop, and they had to put him on heart-lung bypass. They actually repaired the hole with just a couple of stitches.
What?
And and just kind of put him back together and kept him in sedation for a few days to kind of let the healing process begin.
Yeah.
And I think he's going home in a couple of days.
What the hell?
Yeah. So I was like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
But that is, I think the main point of that is that in those moments where you've got those calls that are just chaotic and you're like, holy crap, it's, had my partner not been there to support me, there's no way I could have done all that in such succession and gotten it all done and gotten all the people there where they needed to be, to help this family.
Jeez.
So, I mean, it truly is that, when people say, you took this call and it went great and you did this and you did that. No, it wasn't me. It's never me.
A team effort for
It's
sure.
It's the people who are working with me. It's us working as a team. Tara, kudos. It's the people working with us who make us as good as we are.
Yep.
Wow.
Agreed.
So how long were you on the phone then? And I guess...
I guess I didn't look. I'm guessing I was on the phone for probably 20, 25 minutes, maybe.
And could you hear him in the background?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
Yeah,
Lord.
he was in a lot of pain.
Oh.
And you can tell when it's a guy, they're not normally like, oh my God. Guys are pretty usually stoic.
Mm-hmm.
But you could tell this guy was in some trouble.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then all that time, and then to find out that it actually penetrated his heart.
Right.
And then just a couple stitches.
Yeah. It's cool. So,
Like,
you
you're
get
all
those
right. It's all
things.
right.
You get those things where I'm just like, it'll be fine. We'll get him to the hospital and they'll pull it out and they'll do whatever needs to be done. And then to find out that honestly, in her Facebook post, the wife said that the surgeon said, you should have been dead. You should have been dead long before you got to Sioux Falls.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So by the grace of God and the work of all those responders,
Right.
here's this man who's going to be going home to his family.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So, the both of you had come up on Monday evening and kind of told me this story, but hearing it a second time, it's still as freaking nuts. Like, holy crap.
Yeah. It's like one of those things that
It's just a freak accident.
Yeah.
is what
Right,
I
yeah.
mean, I don't think we've ever had anything like that.
Yeah.
At all in our center, and to see that, I came to work that next week or whatever, and Tara, her partner at the time, was telling me about it, and I was like, are you freaking serious? Like, how did this? Because the rod on the bottom bouncer, it's not something that's very wide, or
it's maybe like this. It's like this diameter, but they're like this long. So
what did you say for diameter?
just they're very small, aren't they?
They're like fishing line small.
Oh,
That's
I thought
why-
they were like at least that.
No.
Oh.
So like going in, it just like it makes me think of when they talk about tornadoes throwing straw through through what?
Through like brick. And,
Through brick and things. Like it must have had to been going at a pretty good. And he must have had some real good tension on that.
Yeah.
To make that penetrate through.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Where's that fish now? Where's the fish?
well, he's got a hook.
Yeah.
Northern don't care.
Yeah.
They're like the piranha of.
Oh.
And they're
The
very
freshwater
large.
lakes.
Yeah. Like very
Oh,
large.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
this wasn't just a regular fish. It
No.
was just
Northern are typically very long, very large, and they have kind of big, pointy mouths with very sharp teeth.
jeez. Well,
Yeah.
so this one was pissed off and had the force of the Hulk.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Jeez.
yeah.
Well, that is awesome though that it had a good outcome, because especially with a situation like this, that outcome isn't always like that. It's
Yeah.
not always an outcome like that.
Right.
But like you were saying, with a combination of everybody working, the grace of God, and just everything, it worked out.
Yeah.
Now, would you notch this on your ship magnet list?
No. You know what? I hope that I remember this for a long time, because I tend to remember the stuff that was just really bad and had bad outcomes. And when I think about it, I want to cry,
Yes. Yeah.
because I've had, one of my first really bad calls was a guy at home with his family, and another guy walks in and just shoots him in the head
Wow.
in front of his kids, and I'm just like, what the hell, and because that stuff makes such an emotional impression on you,
Right.
I tend to kind of remember the really hard ones, but I'm going to remember this one as thank God for this good outcome for this family, and that I got to know about, because people started tagging me after this gal had made this post, like a couple of days after all of this happened. She made this long post, and people started tagging me, as they were other responders, because she was like, we'd like to know as many people as possible were there. And at one point she says in her post, the dispatch lady said she was going to send everybody, and boy did she.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is
and
really
so,
cool.
So I hope that that I remember this as one of those things where I made a difference. Tara and I made a difference, and that we were able to have a good outcome for this family. And that's what matters.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well done. It's been amazing to have the both of you on here to share these stories, learn more about how you got started and everything. As we go into the wrap up of this, I want to ask a couple questions here. First off, for the time that you've been doing this in dispatch and all the calls that you've been taking and everything, what is something that you're most grateful for having this as a career? Lindsay, you had mentioned, this is something that you feel like you're going to end up doing into retirement. And, was there, I guess also for you, was there ever a moment where you realized, whether it be a call, incident, or whatever, that this was your calling? Like, how did you come to that decision? And what are you most grateful for in this?
That's a really good question. I think I've always looked a little alternative with my outer appearance, but I've always been a very big rule follower.
Yeah.
So I had a giant conscience when I was a child. So if I did something wrong, I would always tell on myself, and so I think that kind of plays into the law enforcement side of it, and the wanting to do good for the community. And especially now that I have kids and my kids live in a community that we serve, I think I want to be a good example for them, because I haven't always been. And I want to show them that you can make mistakes when you're young and dumb and stupid, but don't forget to get back up. And the mistakes that you made or the regrets that you have, they make you who you are. And this is who I am, and because of those mistakes and because of the lessons I've learned. And I think I'm with my past and the things that I kind of went through as a young adult. I think I bring a good perspective to dispatch, because there are those people who are currently in that, and I can relate to that and hopefully help them to come out of that. So I think that's just kind of where that passion has come from, just because I love law enforcement, but I think sometimes law enforcement and the court systems get people kind of in a cycle.
Right.
I got a DUI, I lost my license, but I have to get to work, so I drive, and I get pulled over. I don't have a license, so I lost my license even longer. And it becomes this giant cycle, which I know people who have personally been in that, and there is a way out of it. It's going to take a lot of hard work,
right.
and getting rides from people for years, but that can change. And so I think bringing that perspective, and sometimes the officers will come in and they'll be like, oh well, it's him again. I'm like, yep, hopefully at one point in his life we won't have to deal with him.
Right.
And I try to keep that more positive vibe, rather than it's so and so again, son of a bitch. More like I just try to think, okay, at some point hopefully they'll come above this. So yeah, I think that's where
I fully agree there in the sense that, like you're saying, the life experiences, stuff that we deal with in our past, or maybe, something that happened in a different call or something, you would be able to respond better to that person who's calling in because you have that experience.
Yeah.
Versus someone else who might not. They might not know what to say.
Right.
They might not know how to navigate certain the conversations and everything, because they don't have that experience. So for you, whatever that past is and all that you're talking about, that's how you're contributing as well
Yeah.
to this industry
Yeah.
is by bringing those experiences with those who are dealing with it.
Well, I know we have a gentleman who likes to call in welfare checks because he lives in a different state than his kids, and he likes to call and cuss and swear, and you can cuss and swear at me all you want because I could probably beat you in a match, but he'll call and everybody gets really frustrated, like, oh, we just did a welfare check on his kids last week, and I'm like, I know what that feels like to live 1,300 miles from one of your children and not know the whole story.
Yeah.
And especially with kids of divorced parents, like they sometimes try to play the one parent against the other parent, so I understand that. And I told him, I said, you have the perfect dispatcher here because I get what you're going through because I have that same experience. I'm currently dealing with that too. So let me do what I can for you. I can't promise anything, but I'll do what I can to get your concerns heard. And he was like, oh, okay, thanks. And like totally calmed down at that point and was just like, sweet. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just someone who understands
Yeah.
and, that's going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Being real, being human with people.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
I wouldn't say it was a specific call, but just more of like, yeah, I think I was probably meant to do this. I just came into it a little bit later in life.
Yeah. That is awesome. What about you, Theresa?
I think the thing that keeps me going is those calls where you have somebody in a total panic because they have a family member who's going through a medical incident or something like that, and you have the ability to kind of, with your words and with your voice, calm those people down, center them so that they can do their very best to help their family member. And when you're able to do that and you're able to get them to the point where they can function with what you're telling them to do, that's a good feeling.
That is.
So that you have an impact there and you have a chance to be that voice. And, when it says the voice in the trenches, it really is that you use what you have at your disposal. And what you have at your disposal is the instructions, the voice, your tone, your cadence. I'm not going to get upset with you. I'm going to get you to my level of calm so that we can do this. We can do this together, and to make them feel part of your team is the ultimate. And it allows them to function the best they can, whether they ultimately had a good outcome or not. It allows them to come away from that horrible incident and be like, I know that she did everything she could and I did everything I could. So that's what's the ultimate for me.
She has a 911 voice. She does. She'll be talking regular, and then she'll be like, 911. What's the address of your emergency? And so you could just hear it when she answers a 911.
Well, I have a lower voice, so I think that kind of helps me. That I don't have that kind of higher pitched, like I have to kind of really modulate.
Yeah.
It just naturally is, my tone. So, but yeah, I try to kind of center myself before I figure out what's going on with you. So it helps me to help you. Yep.
Okay, now I can answer.
Right.
It's funny though, just listening to the both of you talk how, you can be joking around and having fun in dispatch, and as soon as that line goes off, 911, where's your emergency? You just go right into it.
Right. It really is. There's been a couple times where, like, my partner, she's really good at that too. She'll be laughing and laughing and laughing. 911 rings. She'll turn around, hit the button. 911, what's the address of your emergency? And I'm like,
Yeah.
like I almost laugh just because of like, it's almost like Jekyll and Hyde.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't understand that either. I had my brother visiting once. We were going to go somewhere, but he was sitting in dispatch with me and I was on radios, and we were laughing and talking about other things, and I keyed up and just was normal. He goes, how did you do that? I said, I just, that's what I do, man.
Yeah. It's my job.
Yeah. Or, we'll be on the phones and we'll be laughing or something, and I would say, okay, shut up. Just stop. Not another word. Hold on. Now look at 911, where's your emergency?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I know. And I always say you can't make up anything in dispatch. I mean, like, there's been calls that have come in and literally my partner, I work days. And so my partner, Tara or Kelly, has taken them and And I'm like, I dare you to put that exactly what they said over the radio. Like, I dare you, because you can't make this shit up. You know, like, it's just so out there.
Yeah.
You know, and so sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But I think it's hilarious.
It is.
See, on afternoons, I work with a couple of the newer gals, and like they'll just on a business line call or something like that, they'll put somebody on hold and they'll turn around and be like, how do I say that?
Yeah.
You know, I'll be like, well, don't say that. Say this.
Right, exactly. Because so we would always do this, and it sounds like maybe the both of you are the same. If someone would call in, and we're the ones who are taking the phone call, we're typing in exactly what they are saying,
Yep.
and waiting to see if the person on radios is going to say it the way it is there. And sometimes they would, because like myself, also on radios, I would not read the complaint. I would just straight up give it out, and then I would say something like, all right, well, continuing, she said this or he said that or whatever. And there was one time that I was training. I was still training. Actually, I had just gotten off of training. I was on radios, and my partner was on phones. We switched for whatever reason, and they had done. It was a be on the lookout that they had put out for an intoxicated subject who was going to different driveways just down the road and shitting on every driveway. And of course, everyone is like, well, that's a lot of shit that is busting out there. But they
didn't roll the jokes.
Yes. And so I'm getting ready to give it out. And my partner who had put it in, she goes, you better put it out exactly the way I put it in there. I was like, wait, what? And I looked at it and I said, no, like, I just started here. Like, I love my job. I don't want to lose my job. So I ended up giving it out. And I said, be on the lookout for a male subject who is intoxicated, defecating on driveways. And of course, the officers, assholes, they end up keying up and they're like, Central, what does defecating mean? I'm like, so I keyed up and I said, he's pooping. Okay, he's pooping. I'm like, thank you, Central. I'm like, damn it. Right. Still got me. I didn't say it the way they wanted it, but damn it.
Yeah.
But that's also, some of those things that are fun that happens in dispatching.
Well, I remember I was working with another girl that she's gone now, but I had somebody in the house. She had called 911 and she was like, someone's in the house. I can hear the doors open and shut, opening and shutting and opening and shutting. So I'm typing, and I must type shit a lot when I type because I'm like opening door and shitting door. And I type shit in the call 3 times rather than shut. And all of a sudden the girl behind me starts giggling. And I'm like on this very serious 911 call.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, what is she? It's like kind of looking around. Like, what are you giggling about, And then I had this moment where I could like go back and read what I had typed and like,
oops.
Shut. And then I tried to correct it and I typed shit again. I'm like, really? Why is this happening to me? So I had to correct it, but it was hilarious. I was just like, I must type that word a lot.
Well, at least you didn't say it out loud on the phone.
I did not.
Yeah, there was a time that I was on the phone with someone, and I was typing out a message on the command line to send to one of the troopers. So I had it right up on the top. I'm talking to my caller, and then I started reading out loud the message that I was sending, and she goes, "Sir, I'm sorry. What did you say?" And she goes, "Was that for me?" And I just sat there and I thought, what did I just do? I'm like, oh, no, I'm sorry. That wasn't for you. That was a message that I was sending to one of the troopers that's heading out to you. And she goes, oh, okay. And it was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that just happened. Mm-hmm. Yep. I was like, I'm sorry, ma'am.
You got to love that. There's times where like I put people on hold and I'd be like, okay, so I'm going to do this. And there's nobody talking to me, or not on hold, but on mute. And I'm talking or I'm trying to give instructions. I'm like, hello, can you hear me? Oh, no, he can't.
Yeah.
And then my partners will look at me like, because I'm giving the same instructions again.
Yes.
And I'm like, don't worry about it. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
We're good. Nothing to see here.
I got it.
That is amazing.
Well, I think obviously this is the only center we've ever worked in, but, there's a lot of the bigger centers that separate those two duties, of call taker and dispatcher.
Right.
And in our center, we're both. So you do both functions.
Yeah.
So when you have these different types of calls that come in, you're taking that call, you're also giving that call out and dispatching all your units, So it is a little bit confusing sometimes to be like, wait, am I talking to the caller or the office? What am I doing?
We have foot pedals too. We have the foot pedals. And so sometimes there's sometimes where I'm on the phone with the person, but I'm going over the radio because I'm like, oh crap. you know. Yeah. And I know we had a dispatcher who passed away in January, and she was always the best for open mics.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And I know the one time she took a 44 or a traffic stop.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand or something, but she's, where the fuck is that? On the radio.
Oh no.
And I'm sure everybody was like, Carol.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Those are the
Yeah.
best ones, right? When
Yeah.
they go up and then you're just sitting there for us on the radio screen. Whenever it would stick on the screen, it would show red. It would just stay red, and you're still talking and stuff. And then you look up and you have that moment, you're like, oh, okay. And we would hit the button to try to unkey it, and that's all you could hear over the radio for everyone. It's just pop, pop, pop. And one time, one of the officers keyed up and he goes, "Central, are you okay?" And we're like, "Yes, our radio is old and it sucks, and I apologize."
So there's been times where I don't want stuff to go over the radio, so I'm like, I'm gonna unplug, and now I'll tell you my story, right? Just in case,
Right.
And I know these two ends are not connected,
Yeah.
so I cannot go over the radio. Okay, now I'm done.
Right.
Back to work.
Well, I remember, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but President Obama had come to Watertown for for Lake Area Technical Institute. And so we had a command center where we had some of our dispatchers, and then the others of us were in the regular center. And I was working with two other people. I'll tell you later who. No, it wasn't you. But it was funny because one of them had an open mic, and he was already on the ground. He was on, or I think he was either on his way or he was at the college, and we had an open mic, and my one partner thought it was me, and she turns around, she's like, open mic. I'm like, it's not me. She comes over and she ripped my headset off my head and like pulled out some of my hair.
Oh man.
And I was like, and then officers are still keying up and they're like, open mic, dispatch, you have open mic, and I'm like, it was not me. So she goes over to the other two, and like disconnects, and she's like, you have an open mic. I'm like, see, it wasn't me.
I know. Can you give me my hair back now?
Right, yeah, right. But it was just kind of funny. It was like everybody was panicking, like, where's this open mic? Oh my god.
Yeah,
because the Secret Service is here.
Right. We need to look like we have our shit together.
Currently, hair's being ripped out. Everything is going on. We have
There's
no
a fight
idea.
in dispatch.
Right.
It's cool.
Oh
It was
man,
funny.
that is amazing. Well, thank you both very, very much for being on this episode. That was an excellent way to close this. I can see all of that shit happening in my head. That is so good.
Oh, golly. Thank you so much for
Yes.
your time.
No,
We've really
sure.
enjoyed this.
Yes,
Yeah.
this was a lot of fun. It's to learn more about the both of you, and enjoy the rest of the time here.
Yeah.
You've got the rest of today with sessions, and then there's going to be sessions tomorrow and everything. And just keep doing what you do. Thank you for the job that you do, and it's been awesome to have you both here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For those who are currently watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, I will throw this on the screen here really quick. You can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy. And again, a big shout out to our host, the IAED here at Navigator 2021 in booth 412. For everything. Thank you so very much. If you have not been to this conference, make sure you check it out. All of it. It has been very well worth it. And the networking alone, but also all the speakers, everything that they do, make sure to check it out. Navigator.emergency.org. And there's going to be more to come here from the conference. Also, if you're looking for any bonus content, you can hook us up and sponsor us, support us rather, and that's going to be patreon.com/WTT podcast for any bonus content, swag, t-shirts, all that good stuff. And then this can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, as well as Twitter. And you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.